So in this walkthrough, we're going to focus on the many capabilities that differentiate Birst. We're going to start here with the concept of the right tools for the right user and a corporate analytics solution developed for use by both the sales and marketing teams. Now take this example. This is a dashboard developed for an executive team in the marketing department. Yep, it's pretty, but what's the most important number? Since ROI is what they get hired and fired on, it takes a prominent position on this page. Now what you're looking at is a value-based design dashboard, an approach to building business meaningful metrics that is often cited by customers as a key contributor to the success of their projects. It's a departure from the world of reports on a page, completely interactive, so we can even click to filter, or we can scroll down and see what they're currently showing in the public site and on their social media feeds. But remember, this is a corporate site, which means shared metrics like this one allow us to drill through to the sales executive view. This person doesn't care about ROI, but they are compensated on revenue, and they can control the drivers towards that number, the deals, the win rate, and the average deal size, which matches our previous page. Again, interactivity is key. For example, the ability to remove or visually apply or scroll down. Here we see two common report requests, the pixel perfect print ready version on the left and a crosstab on the right. Another great example of the right tools for the right user's capability, that is Birst. Now let's expand our scenario. Clearly, we have a good set of marketing or sales dashboards, but what if somebody came along and wanted to have a consolidated view? Classically, such a request would take planning and power users to deliver. But with Birst, we have made it possible for business users to take the reins and experiment. And it starts right here. No need to spin up a client-based app. We have all we need already at hand. How about this as a starting point? A whiteboard or blank canvas like this one right here. So we're going to give it a name, and then we'll start with a big digit number. Now, as you can see, we have a nice list of measures to pick from, which is something we'll return to later. But for now, we're going to take what we want, the expected amount, and format it how we want. Now, while we do this, let's stop and think. Too many tools believe that just having this number is enough, but it's not. Remember, it's called a key performance indicator. Without some kind of direction, it's simply not actionable. Now, why don't other tools do this? Because typically indicators involve creating a formula, and that is beyond the skill level of your average user, right? In Birst, we believe that's wrong. In this dialog, we're defining a calculation for growth. To do that, we have built two editors. The first is for business users and offers an intuitive, guided means to build something like this. As you can see, there are type aheads and nudges so the user can't get lost. But if you're a power user and have been trained in Birst query language, for you have the power of advanced mode, allowing you to leverage the full power of our deep expression library to build the expression you want. Either way, you get the same result, a one-line growth calculation that also happens to be using Birst out-of-the-box time series seamlessly. Last step with this indicator, let's add some color and direction. Using just a mouse, making a few selections, and we're done. This is actionable. Now that's our sales KPI. Next up for our business user is to bring in the marketing ROI. It's a sales and marketing dashboard after all. This is clearly a calculation, and rather than try to recreate it, why not use the one from our library of business formulae? This is a big win in the Birst environment. One rule for everyone, maintained by the marketing team and available right here. Now it's hard to understate this. Imagine if the marketing team revised their formula. In this dashboard, the update will be immediate. Nobody's no longer going to be able to question whether that number is accurate or not, because it's network linked to the formula. One more thing, here's an even easier way to make it an indicator by adding a quick quarterly line chart, and we are done. Okay, that's enough KPIs to make the point. Let's move on to adding reports. Now, just because we can build elegant dashboards, this does not mean the era of print-ready, highly formatted reports developed by report-building ninjas and power users is dead. In Birst, we have a designer module, 100% browser-based for needs just like this. Yep, It typically takes some in-person mentoring to get your head around concepts like banded reports, but it's well worth it. We can also do some nice formatting here. For example, removing chart junk like unnecessary titles and giving this a shadow to help the user realize this is export and schedule friendly. And adding in a background from either our library or via URL, we're cloud after all, is easy. Finally, let's click publish. Now, think back to our original dashboard. Except for the print ready report, virtually all of the other visuals were actually built using a module called Visualizer. Let's see it in action. For charting and tabular reporting, Birst offers its best-in-class authoring environment, built for use by both business users and power users. Yep, what we built here was an analytical tool that was so simple that even an executive, like my boss, could even use it. Now, what makes it so simple? It could be the Google-style searching that allows me to quickly traverse my catalog of attributes and measures. It could be the Amazon-style nudging that allows you to painlessly experiment with novel chart types like trellising. Try doing that in Excel. Similarly, we can add a third attribute in seconds to give our report some color, just to make it look interesting. But let's pause here and highlight a common challenge. You see, we've got sales by quarter, by region. But what if our user had their own forecast data, built by them, used by them, but needs to be overlaid here? How can that be added? How is every other tool doing it? By giving the user the ability to change the view to be tabular and providing a download to Excel option. Problem with that? What's the user going to do? They're going to use the feature to work in Excel, add their forecast data, save a workbook, and then email it. And what do you have? A data silo sitting outside the IT data center and an expanding governance issue or problem. Now in Birst, we don't like silos. So we tackle this same scenario by flipping the script and making it super easy for a user to bring data into that cloud. What does that mean? First, let's return to the chart. Now, instead of exporting our stuff, let's import theirs. The first step, getting our data to Birst. Typical of Visualizer, the ability to select our file is made as simple as possible. Now, once loaded, we have a preview of the data. Now, if the name didn't give it away, the content should help us see it. This is sales target information, a completely valid data point for our user to want to apply and make things actionable. Now, because both this edge data and the centrally IT managed data have regions in it, let's establish that relationship in this screen here. And now we're done. And what's happening? The data from that spreadsheet is being uploaded to the Birst environment. To be clear, this is not polluting your IT managed core space. That planet is still pristine. But instead, what it's doing is creating a satellite space with a citizen count of 1 and a bridge connecting it to that main space. This is network analytics, and its implications are huge. We'll delve into the underlying architecture in a bit, but remember who we are right now. We're a business user who doesn't care about how the data is stored. All I want is to be able to pick my metric, which I can do like so, and apply it to this visual here auto-magically. The fact that this report is now performing federated querying to display results, or that the underlying model retains its integrity and manageability and visibility by IT, that's good stuff for people like power users, and has the potential to end that corporate empowerment challenge that has been a battle for decades. Okay, so now let's save this report. Remember how we got here, drilling down from the initial dashboard. Well, we can insert to take us back up to that top level. A little bit of formatting and we're ready to publish. And our business user is done. A dashboard that was built in minutes and instantly available for everyone to access. And not only that, it's feature packed with all those things that you saw earlier, like like, visual filtering. Simple as that. Let's take a quick stock of what you've seen so far. Dashboards, they're at the heart of what the line of business users will want to see. And the things that get placed in it, the authoring tools available, you can jump directly to via these links here. But now we're going to lift the hood a bit and show you what your power users may care about in this module that we call admin. What you're looking at here is the entire workflow for creating analytic ready data. From importing it, refining it, preparing it, and then managing the who's and how's of distribution, everything is here. Historically, these activities would have been addressed by an army of people and tools with names like Alteryx and Irwin, and roles such as ETL developers, data modelers, DBAs, dashboarders, and all of the related complexities. Now, managing such a mixed product environment is often a reason why organizations have come to accept projects in analytics have to be measured in months and years. But with Birst, this is truly an agile, interactive workflow. Take this modeling option right here. A few times now, we've referenced this concept of a semantic layer, but what does it look like? Here's an example, a peek behind the scenes. What you're seeing are the sources, the raw data that was used for reporting. Now, I suspect yours might even be more complex with cloud sources like Salesforce, spreadsheets, databases, big data. Even your existing data warehouse could be displayed right here. This is not what the user works with in Birst. Instead, here we have a physical structure where it's been reorganized. Some people call this a warehouse, some people call it a star schema. We at Birst refer to this as analytically ready data, and is key to allowing an enterprise to have something stable that is abstracted away from the volatility of the root systems. And then we have this, the pieces that are used to get from those sources to this target. This is what we call automated data refinement. To give you an idea of how automated it is, we're going to show you by building a solution from nothing. Now there's a couple of options here, but we're going to pick the business user approach. Consider this scenario. You've been contacted by the head of the call center team. They've got analytical needs, and they've seen what was built for the sales and marketing team in a matter of days and weeks, and they want some of that goodness. What options do they have? Perhaps they can get the other departments to allow their space to include call center data, but imagine the technical and political challenge that would involve. It's that barrier that leads to the most common option, to go rogue with an Excel or similar based option. The problem, this is how silos get formed. Now at Birst, we hate silos, so we can address it by doing something else. We call it connected data prep, and our engineers have codenamed it as Pronto. We're going to start here by creating a brand new project for our needs. Note that the projects here, they're synonymous with spaces shown before, and the end result is the same. But how you get there, instead of an overabundance of planning and requirements gathering, consider using this as a workshop setting to instantly experiment. What you're seeing here is what we're going to be doing, connecting to our data, preparing it, and relating it. These steps will make it analytically ready for use in visualizer and dashboards like you saw before. Note what is missing here. Admin and designer modules are not displayed, as those are typically power user functions. There's no need to overwhelm our business, but just know that this project can be upgraded to a full space if and when necessary. Our first priority is going to be to connect to our data. All that's needed is a mouse and knowledge of where our source is located. And we are done. The result is shown here. 3 worksheets brought into Birst. The first, it contains a list of team members and their areas of expertise. The other datasets contain all of the support cases and calls we have worked. Now looking here, we can see we have a timestamp level data and even a customer identifier linking this to Salesforce. So let's import this and consider if we had the account record from Salesforce, we could do even more. How do we get that here? Well, Classically, you would run a report from Salesforce to get the information you want, but that sounds like another silo being created, so it's not the Birst way. Instead, we do it this way. Notice how simple the connection is. Sure, there may be complex scenarios and options that the power user would want, but Birst admin is there to satisfy their urge for more. But as a business user, this is good enough. It keeps things simple. Username, password, simple. Now, all our user needs to do is think about what the object is. Now, all our business user initially wanted was the account name, right? But because they can see the complete data set, it's super easy to select a couple of others and ignore the rest. This is really powerful. It's a win for the user because of the preview capability, and a win for the Salesforce administrator and power users because only those pieces that are relevant are being pulled, making for time-efficient, cost-effective API usage. Now, there are a lot more sources available, but for now, let's move on to the next step in our flow. We have our raw ingredients. Let's go and prepare an analytic-ready view of our data. Let's take a look at what we have. First up, we have our accounts. This is probably good enough for our purposes as it is. But this one here, we want to do some data manipulation to get these cases primed for reporting. Now, for a start, we have a timestamp field for support cases. Because we're a business user and experts in what we do, we realize that knowing the hour a day for calls is incredibly important for load balancing. And because we're in Pronto, extracting that number is a matter of intuitive clicks with a mouse, keyboard not required. Let's give it a name that's clear and we're done. Now next up, let's show you merging for a couple of sources. Here, our business user knows that each case type has an expert identified. So it would be good to connect those two together and know who is shining versus struggling in that role. So that data point needs to be added. But look here, no data. Clearly something went wrong. Here's what's great about Birst and Pronto. You see a screen like this, as a business user, you don't have to panic. Just need to call your resident expert who can log in with a browser, take a look at your project, and instantly see what logic you have in place, and even identify what went wrong. In this case, a bad join. This is the beauty of connected data prep in a cloud environment with something like Birst. The agility of a web scale platform is going to allow you to empower your business users and be able to help them in seconds should they ever make a mistake. It encourages experimentation. Lastly, and to be clear, although we only have a few activities shown here, make no mistake that the full power of Birst query language is available at your fingertips. So for now, I'm going to just create a simple user-friendly count of cases metrics. But if I wanted to do something crazy advanced, such as call out to an R expression or any other of the myriad of functions available here, I can. For the power users in the room, this is your chance to smile at the possibilities. So at this point, we have our data prepared and we will go ahead and publish. Now note something I didn't do. I didn't create one big flat source. There's no need in Birst to do that because we're smarter. Instead, we're going to be keeping these 4 data sets as we're going to be ignoring the original support case in favor of our new one, and we'll instead relate everything. For the power user, this means establishing cross-table querying. For the business user, it means analytically ready data in a format and folder structure that they will understand. So at this point, let's go ahead and relate. There are a few activities we're going to do in this step. First up, we're going to connect our call center information to our accounts. This will now allow me to slice my call counts by these other fields, like account type. Next, we're also going to relate our accounts to the prepared cases set that we created earlier. In addition, we can do things like change the column types. Why do this? Because remember how in Visualizer everything was organized into attributes and measures? This is how it was done. It was that easy, but that effective. And that's the key point here. We're making it simpler for business users to perform complex tasks that would typically be done by power users. That's the power of Pronto. And now we're done. Okay, so just to wrap things up, let's have our business user play with the data they created. Let's start with the obvious first question. Cases trending over time. But rather than thinking about days, we're going to look at them by the hour of a single day. Now, you might want to see if this pattern is consistent for all category types. Clearly not. In particular, let's take a look at the top couple of categories. We can see that people often call in with issues with their reporting at the start of the end of the day, with a nice little spike for how do I type requests. But remember how we blended this set to include the category expert? By adding that here, we can see that Luis and Stephen, they're likely to be working a little harder than some of their colleagues. Maybe a load balancing initiative is in order. Okay, that's one insight. Let's go back to the chart view. Remember how we linked our cases to our clients? Let's leverage that relationship by slicing the set to show both the segment and location of each case. Clearly, we see that somebody needs to look into the incoming call load coming from particular regions and types of business. This outlier type report, that's the win. It didn't even exist 10 minutes ago, and now we have it available at our fingertips for some deep analysis, courtesy of Birst.
Okay, so let's start here where we see a list of our spaces, including the sales and marketing one that we previously looked at and worked with. Now in our case, we're going to want to build a new one for this call center department. And we can do that like so. Now does this screen look familiar? Remember how I referenced it as my one-stop workflow earlier? This time, we're actually going to go through it, starting with the first piece, which is about connecting to our data. Now consider, you've got this cloud application and it needs to get data in it. Would you want it to go off and pull the data from each of your systems nightly or push it in? What if you heard that that cloud company had a data breach? Imagine the scary possibilities if they had been doing pulls then. That's why we believe that typically for an enterprise, the lower two options, they're going to be your best choices for loading a system like ours. Pushing that data from you to us when and how you want it. Now, if you've got a coding team, they could develop something using web services. We have a library available. But if you're not a coding expert, feel free to use this tool that we call Birst Connect. What is it? Just a lightweight applet that's Java based, which means that it's allowed to run anywhere. And within it, you can configure your connection. You can identify your objects and generate the logic you need to get them from your system to ours seamlessly. In our example here, the call center team have given us the names of the sources we need. We can pick them and then kick it off. Now, while this is running, consider the second part of this display. It's for live access. This is particularly useful for data that's already analytically optimized. So say you're an organization with a well-established data warehouse or a data lake. There's no need to transfer anything to Birst. With live access, you can connect the plumbing right here, and then queries that are run by the user at the front end are passed through for execution by your system, and they're seamlessly displayed back in ours. Imagine what that means. A user, they can have a report with multiple columns fulfilled by multiple queries across your corporation fabric, and they wouldn't even know the magic that's going on behind the scenes. More importantly, they're not even going to want to care, and nor do they need to care. And that's the power of Network BI and Birst. Let's return to our admin main screen and review our data. First up, we're going to want to enable the sources to allow them to be manipulated. Once that is done, we can now relate them to make things even simpler. Now, this can often be done with a call center expert sitting right next to you, helping you understand that the objects that you have. Here, we know that the support cases object, it contains most of our key metrics. And we're going to want to slice that information by the types of cases and also by the types of customer we've got. And those customers, they actually have support contracts related like so. All we need in Birst is a mouse to establish relationships like these. Now that's done, we can create a user-ready model either manually or by simply clicking the update button to speed up the process right here. Now I could get really technical at this point. You see, just because we use a wizard, that doesn't mean that we've lost control over our design. Everything you see here, it can be modified to order. And you can do it like this. In this screen, we can remap our sources to appropriate dimensions based on what the business expects to see. And where are they going to see the end result? Tools like Visualizer, Dashboard, Designer. Define it once here, see it everywhere else. The technical details of what's going on, that's actually for another time. But it's important to note a couple of things. First up, even though we're clearly in the realm of the IT data modeling ninja, most of what you see is being done with one hand and a mouse. And that's it. 2, if you're not an IT ninja, don't worry about it. Remember how I showed you blending in Visualizer earlier? That was a user-friendly way of doing pretty much the same stuff that you see me doing here. And even that, it can be modified in a console like this after the fact if we had to. Total customization. But for now, let's assume we're done and ready to take this model design and make it a reality. What we're going to do now is physically run a process that will generate the DDL to create a database and the SQL to load it up. Question here, what database? Now other companies may offer something similar, but they're going to put it in a proprietary native to them format. In Birst, we don't believe in that kind of vendor lock. For us, the database you create could be Oracle, SQL Server, SQL Server, HANA, Redshift, or even a cool technology like in-memory XSL. We support them all. But even better, if you're being hosted by us, you don't even have to worry about that, because that is all part of being true cloud in our architecture. We'll handle the performance and reliability needs that you want. So let's pause here and imagine all of what you just saw is being done in a single session, in this case with our subject matter expert and your resident Birst ninja in the same room. Could have been the same person. When we at Birst talk about agile approaches to analytics, hopefully you get to see what we mean. Now while you contemplate the possibilities of something like that, let's jump over to Visualizer and see what we have. First, let's see if our model is actually working like we expect. And we're going to work on this one together. How do you think we would show our accounts sorted by cases created? How about like this? How useful would it be to add billing information to this to see if there's any correlation between our highest value and noisiest customers? The challenge here is that if you look, we don't have billing information, but we know it's out there in our company. So how do we get it? Now, one possibility is to use the import data option, but that means we have to have a copy of that data already to hand. Now, if we had that spreadsheet, we probably already got a silo of inaccurate information. So that's probably not going to be a good way to do it. Now, a second option, we go back to admin, go back to our connectors view and find the data, bring it in, and then we're going to refine it. But why would we do that? Because if you remember earlier, our very first part, we showed revenue on screen, which is all about billings. So that team already has billing information imported, refined, and in their analytic model. Why would we want to create another copy of that when we can simply connect over and use the one that they have? This here is one of my favorite features in Birst. The ability to interconnect spaces. It's the definition of networked BI. What you're looking at is a screen around packages, collections of objects that the company has created in Birst for functional use. Think of this as a library, curated and governed by the enterprise analytics team in IT. What they've gone and done is provide an access controllable listing of standard objects. They're business meaningful and made available for departments like us to use. We want customer details, and this one right here looks like it fits the purpose. Let's go ahead, import it, and try it out. And when we return to data flow, we can see the changes instantly. A couple of things worth noting here. See those asterisk items? These are the network sourced objects, not copies, but referential links back to that parent space. This means that I don't have to worry about the data updates or integrity checks. IT department, they've already covered that. Second, see this account object here? It's actually in both environments, the IT parent space and our one right here. Whether you know it as conformed dimensions or federated querying, just remember that Birst, we're going to be sure to use the right one at the right time. So let's go it back and watch it in action. Let's get back to our report. Remember, no need to reprocess. This data has just been networked in. When we click on measures, we see a billing object now that wasn't there before. And we can add it like it's already part of the gang. It's all seamless. In fact, we can do even more. How cool would it be to create a billings per support case metric? How do we do that? Remember, expression editor. And we can do it like this. Might as well use the wizard, it's that simple. And while we're at it, let's make it global too. What does that checkbox do? It means that this calculation is going to be available for the rest of the call center team to use as they build their own dashboards in this same space. And we are done. That's the beauty of no more silos. Through the exceptional power of network BI, that's the unique power of Birst.